can also select them, C, and call this pairs. Originally, I wanted to do the lag first, but I kind of run into an unintended error here. Let me roughly explain it. I figured it out, and we're going to learn something very cool there, which is nowhere documented, so be glad I figured this out. I'm glad myself. And let's take a look at the character here really quick. When you have a normal character, you have a foot bone. We don't have a foot bone, meaning we have a problem when we want to set this. Now, Blender thinking it might be fine because we would have a bone down here, but since the Unreal is everything one bone set off, we're basically missing the position here down here where we can set the control to. While in a normal character, this wouldn't be a problem. We could just grab the next bone. Yeah. So this is the problem I ran into it. It's a bit very specific, but since this is a little bit more specific, I want to do the arm IK first. So we learn how to do IKs. In the arm IK, we have a next bone. So in order to do the arm, first of all, we need right click a new space, a space which we can set. And we call this arm underscore IK. So we want to set this space to which bone exactly? Let's take a look. Pretty confident it's going to be the arm. Here we have the hierarchy. I wanted to set it here. So this is going to be the hand L. I want to set it to the hand L. Hand L. So let's drag this out. Get it? We're going to set it in. So nothing really is visible because we don't have a control yet. So let's delete this out here. And we need a control. Control. And we call this arm underscore IK. And we drop this onto the space. And it will be exactly where it should be. We hit compile and we could in theory move this, but nothing is following it. So we have to do a IK here. We can drag this out now here and we type in basic IK. And here we get the IK node to create IKs. And very roughly, don't worry too much about what I'm saying right now, and you can see we have to input 3 things here, 3 bones, yeah? Bone, 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 3 types. So the first one would be and this is obviously the upper arm L. So we put the upper arm L in here, and down here obviously it's the lower arm. So what goes in here? In here goes the next bone, which is in this case the hand, the hand L. If something breaks, don't worry about it. But the thing is, we have 3 bones here. If we take a look at the leg, our leg only has 2 bones, right? We are rotating our leg only with 2 bones, 1, 2, right? And this is the problem I ran into it. I figured it out. Don't worry, don't worry. Solvable. But back to the IK. Now let's hit compile here. And the arm here breaks and whatever. That is not a big deal. So the reason it breaks here is because we didn't choose this control to actually control it, okay? So all we have to do is grab our control, the arm, okay? Get it. And this goes right into the effector here. If you select it, you can see everything is grayed out beside 1. And you can see it's not broken anymore, and we can even grab it. Now you can see it's stretching and whatever. This is just because we have to propagate to children, so the children will follow down here. And if we now select this, you can see we already kind of arm IK. We can also rotate this and whatever. It's technically already working. So now we should go through the rest of the settings. Now we cover the top here, right? The first bone, then the second bone, and 1 bone over the actual position we have, which is the hand there. We always have to get in 3 bones. What goes in here is the actual control, so we can control it, right? And now we should take a look at the primary axis and the secondary axis. Now, if we go over here, the major axis being aligned along the item. Let's unfold this here. And we have X1 here. I just want you to be aware because I had some trouble with that in some rigs. This axis we are looking for here is the axis that points along the bone. You can see we have the red arrow here. This is the primary axis. I remember when we exported it and I told you about the primary and the secondary axis, where in Blender we have the primary axis Y and the secondary X. We have here X primary and Y secondary. So just make sure you have this primary axis here. The secondary axis, for some reason, I figured out that if we just have no secondary axis, we get a far better wanted result. Now you can see how it's actually bending more in the direction it should be bending. Let's just compile this, put in a 1 here again. Now 1Y would be right because the secondary axis is the Y, like I told you. It's actually fine, but we might need to delete this for some reason. We'll see in a second. The next thing is the secondary axis weight. This is just how much it weighs. We could also turn it off here. Now we have the pole vector. Now the pole vector, if you remember in Blender, we had a pole in the back here. So in order to get our pole, we do the same thing we always did. First of all, we get a control space, a new space, and we call this arm underscore pole. By the way, I just realized we didn't give this a size, so we should probably make this underscore L here. My fault. I'm sorry. Underscore L. And the arm pole as well. Underscore L, because we are on the left side here. It seems like it flipped out a name somewhere or something. Here you can see it flipped out the name here, so we kind of have to check this again. Arm, okay, L and L, this is fine. It's still working. Okay, we just had to make sure the right naming is everywhere in here. That's why we should probably name it properly first. But we have the space now. And what we want to do in order to, I'm going to move this back because the logic has to be solved before that. We want to set the space to this point here. So which point is this? Let's take a look. What do I need to select here? The lower arm underscore L. So we're going to grab the lower arm underscore L. Lower arm underscore L. We get it and we plug it in. So the space should be now right over this dot. We just don't see it. We need a control here. And we call this arm underscore pole underscore L. And we just drop it onto the space. And we can see it's right there. Now I'm a bit annoyed that those are relatively big, so I'm going to scale them down. Just select the control. And we're going to make this, I don't know, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. Already a little bit better. Same with that one. 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. Okay. Now we have set and created our pole. And we can connect this here again. Hit compile, see if everything works. Yep, working fine. And just now we have to set the pole to it. So let's grab the pole, the control, and get it. And we just have to unfold this here because we only want, you can see pole vector, it's yellow, and this here is orange. This is like the whole transformation, but it's a rod log scale, but we only need the location here, which is the translation here. Plug this in here, hit compile. And if we now move this, we can see how it's bending in the direction of this pole. So basically, if I now grab this pole, move it a bit back and move it a bit up here, you can see how it's moving with the pole. So this is pretty nice. So now I wanted to take a close look at the arm. Doesn't the arm, I know mine is jittering. This is like an extra I have. Let me just turn off the jitter here. You can see the arm is, while it's technically working, right? We can move this up here. We can move the pole. While it's technically working, it's totally rotated. This is the secondary axis I was talking about. For some reason, it just doesn't like it. I'm going to just completely turn it off. And you can see it's fixed and it's still working. We can move this over here. We can move our pole. And now obviously we should have maybe some space here. And this is now working. So now the thing is, while everything is nice and dandy here now, some people like it, I like it as well, if the pole is actually moving with the hierarchy here. The most logical thing would be to just drop the space here onto the arm, so it just, well, is parallel to each other, but it's not working. This is because of the space, because the space prevents those things. But we can do this a little bit different. We can get an item. I don't know if there's a better way, this is just the solution I found, so if anyone figures out a better way, let me know. Item, and actually not item, sorry. Items, and we click the little plus here and just want to grab a certain thing. I want to grab a control and I want to grab our arm IK. All this information includes is the fact that this here is the arm IK. And then we get a parent switch constraint and we plug this in between here in front of the IK. Now we can just give this parent switch constraint, which will switch the parent. So with that now we can basically switch a parent. We can parent something to something. And what I want to parent is the space hand pole, the space arm pole, yeah. I want to parent the arm pole to the parent. Here's the parent, and here we set up the arm IK. Drag this in here, and with that, it's parented on. Now hit compile here, and if we now move this here, still not moving with it. This is because we need the initial global transform, meaning we're going to get the bone where it should be, the lower arm L. Yeah, we can just drag this out here, drag this in here, and compile. So now it's still not working because I made a little mistake here. And those things go so easy. Delete the items again, make a new items. And you can see we already have a 0 here, unfold this. And we want the control arm IK. It's in here. Pile. If you now move this, you can see it's moving with it. So you might already realize that we don't need the step here. The step where we put the space to the arm, because here it's already asking us. So in theory, we can just skip this one node, compile. and things should still work just as they did before. And we can delete this node. Kind of unintended, but I mean, it's basically already setting this step we did here automatically for us. So, and with that, we basically have the ARM array. I know it's getting probably a little bit complicated, a little bit lengthy, but once you figure it out, it's not that hard, honestly. Like, I never thought I would be doing this, but it's actually not that hard once you get it. So we can name this. Here, let's just read what it does. We're setting the transform of a space. We're setting the transform of the arm IKL, which is this one here, to the bone. So we can just name this, select it, C, and we call this arm underscore IK. And here we're going to call this here. This is where we parent. What do we parent? C, parent pole to IK. That's what we're doing here. We're parenting the pole to the IK. And this here is just simply, I guess, arm IK underscore L. And hit compile. We already got the IK set up. All right, great progress. Now what I usually do is when I have like a section, like the arm is a section, yeah, I grab it and drag it down here. Now we can, I think, double click on the line to get like a reroute node, and we can nicely create like some curves here, I guess. Obviously, I would now put either the next arm to the right side or to the bottom, but I want to do the leg first. We just did the arm, now we're going to do the leg, then we're going to do the arm again and the leg again, just for a repeating factor. And because I'm about to forget how I did the leg, so gotta do this real quick. To this missing bone, I'm honestly fighting a little bit about that. I just wanted to select the calf here, right click, new bone. Now we right click the bone again, control bone transform. And you should get a gizmo here. I hope you get a gizmo there. And then I'm going to drag this down until it's like perfectly on this vertex here. Just on this one axis right here. Then we right click it and set initial transform. And hopefully you get a bone. Next, we're going to do this step by step. We need right click a new space, which we're going to call F2 here, foot underscore IK underscore L. Then we right click it on it, new control F2 foot underscore IK underscore L. Wow. All right, I guess let's try this again. My God. Foot underscore IK underscore L. Okay, it's not crashing. Good sign. Now we want to set this IK. Now we want to set the space from the IK. Where do we want to set it? To this new bone, which we probably should rename, but I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this after it's working. And I want to get it. I'm going to drag this in here. And okay, it's where it should be. Now we are dragging this out here. We're getting a basic IK. And we're going to set up the bones. The bones are going to be the thigh, L, the calf, L, and the new bone. It's breaking. All right. Now we're going to grab our control, IK control, get control, plug it in here, hit compile. And it seems like it's working. My God, it was. You have no idea. You can see it's a little bit broken. This is just the secondary axis, which we want to turn off. All we really need is now to get our pole. Let's save this here as long as it works. Now to create our pole, we drag this a bit over because this here needs to happen after we set the pole. Right click, new space, F2, and we call this foot underscore pole underscore L. And we need a control for that, new control, F2, foot underscore pole underscore L. We're going to set the base. Yeah, but we do this please in front of here. Where do we set it? We set it onto the upper bone, which is the calf. So get, and we plug this in here and we'll be at the calf. All right. So now we can put the execute back in here. And what did we do? We just simply plugged the pole into the vector. Okay, let's get the pole, the control bone. We unfold this here, get the translation into the pole vector, hit compile, and we see how it goes. Now it's finally bending into the right direction, into the direction we want. Last thing that hopefully will work is that we parent it. Where did we do this? Right, we did this with one thing here together. So basically I did the same mistake twice, but it doesn't matter. As long as it works, I'm happy. So we did get our items and we unfolded this here where we set the IK itself. So basically the foot, the control, we have to change this from bone to control, and we need to get the foot IKL. Then we got the bone, the lower arm, which represented is our calf here. Let's just copy this over. And we need a parent switch constraint. I guess we can just copy this one here. And instead of the arm pole, we use obviously the foot pole. We plug this in here, plug this in here. We move this a bit down. And instead of this one here, we're going to use this one here. Compile. and things are working. My god, you have no idea how long I first of all tried to figure out how to add a bone and then had to fight with that. I really hope it works for you. I guess next time I do something like that, I'm going to absolutely make sure I have just one empty bone in every end of the chain, just because Unreal shows this stuff so stupid. Or hopefully they will fix this annoying glitches here. But okay, we technically got the IKs done. Holy Christ. So now that this is working, my god, I'm so happy. Press C here and we're going to call this foot underscore IK, oops, underscore IK underscore L. And I will be dragging this a bit down because we are obviously need to do the arm here still and then a second leg. We can copy the nodes, so this will be a little bit faster. Alright, so some of you know that sometimes when you have a rig, you want the pole to be further back, right? Now we built our rig perfectly the way it's going to never break with that. We absolutely made sure when we actually rigged it in Blender, but sometimes for certain rigs they're not built that perfectly and you will have to get this back in order for the pole to work properly and bend in the right direction. I'm going to show you how you can do this. I'm walking here now on the arm IK, alright? So here we set the space of the arm IK, here we parent the pole to the IK here, and we can grab this out here and set relative transform. And we plug this in here into the IK now. And what do we want to do? Actually, sorry, not set relative transform. Transform, offset transform, offset transform. That's what we want. And we can plug this in here. Come on. What do we want? We want the space of the pole. So we now unfold this here. Translation is the position, the location. And we can type by Y. Because Y, you can see if we select this, Y is what we want to change here. We want, I think a -15. And you can see it's further back. And if we would now grab this, you can see it's perfectly ending up here again. This way, it's going to be perfectly offset. We can just make a C here and call this offset pole. Yeah, move this a bit aside here. And now I know for our rig that we don't need this, okay? But it's good to have because you will be able to copy all those nodes into a similar rig, onto exactly the same rig, right? Especially the arm will probably work for Unreal Mannequin, since we named everything properly and have kind of the same bone hierarchy here. All right, so I'm going to show you another thing here, which is also a little bit tricky, honestly. Thank God I figured this out a while ago. If you go up to window here, or let's take a look here. I have a my blueprints class here, window here, which you probably very likely don't have. If you go to window, you will have to open this up manually. Here we go. Here it is, my blueprints. And then you can just dock it somewhere. Why do we need this? Because in here we can create variables. Usually on the blueprints, when you right click, you can create variables. Here we can't, unless we have this window where we can hit plus and we call this arm pole Y offset. And we get a variable. Now, you know, we want a number, so we have to change this from a boolean into an actual number, which is a float. We can drag this out here and we can get it. And we can plug this into the Y, right? And just down here. Why do I do this? Well, for some reasons. But first of all, we have to select it here because we need to change the value, right? We have to hit compile and then we get this space on here. -15 is the value we, in theory, wanted. I'm going to later on take this out because I don't need it. Perfectly built. And two things. So why do I do this? Because then if we offset the pole on each arm, we can manually do this. We can automatically do this with just one value because I know the left and the right arm should have the same offset, right? Because usually all the rigs are symmetrical. We can try this really quickly with the leg here, with the leg pole. So let's just copy this setup here, this offset pole. Go down here, move this a bit aside, paste this in here, plug this in between. And we are going to change this from the arm pole to the foot pole. And in theory, it should automatically work. And you can see it's automatically offset. Now, for the other side, I know the x's are flipped, so I'm just going to throw this in here really quick. If we multiply this, -1, this is just how math works. If we multiply something -1, it's going to turn around. We plug this in, you can see it's in the back here. Yeah, so for the other side, in the front of the node, we will need a multiply -1. Compile. And now if I select this variable and change it back to 0, I don't have this offset anymore. Pretty handy. Ctrl+Shift+S. And I'm going to rename this here really quick. This is the foot underscore IK underscore L parent pole to IK. And this here is the, what do we call this? Arm IK. So this is the foot IK L. Okay. So okay, now we have to obviously do the other side, right? I want to start with a bone Gladly, I found a way of doing that relatively quickly once we have a bone. So we find our bone in the hierarchy here. And first of all, we should probably name this. Let's call this foot_L. Let's just check here in the foot if we have foot_L. It seems to have renamed the bone properly. To work, let's hit compile. Oh, good. Now we can select the bone, right click, and we can copy it. Then we can right click and paste it. Now we're going to drop the bone onto the right parent, so the calf R, yeah, drop it down here. And now you can see it's a little bit broken and whatever, but we can right click this here and mirror. So I want you to change one thing here. I'm going to explain why we changed this in a second, but first of all, let's do this. The mirror axis, so basically it's mirroring over X from right to left. It's the same thing in Blender, but we want to flip one axis. And we know that the right side and the left side look in the opposite direction, so we also have to flip Y here. Hit OK, and we can hit compile. Now you can see it copied the bone down here. We can just delete the upper one, which is kind of angle in there. Can rename this to R, obviously. And we got this set up. Now the reason I changed Y here, let's go to the first node here, and we can grab this out here and draw hierarchy. If we now plug this in here, oh, it doesn't actually matter much, but you can see we see the direction of our bones. And the reason I typed in to flip Y is because this Y is looking back and we also wanted to flip this Y in front. But yeah, this draw hierarchy is pretty good if you want to observe your axis. Let's hit compile here and Ctrl+Shift+S. Now to do the other side, it's actually relatively straightforward. We just have to work through it. Let's just fold a few things in here, not the calf maybe. Let's just fold this in here. So obviously, first of all, we need the spaces and the control. So we just have 2 spaces and 2 controls here. So we just need 2 spaces and 2 controls. So let's just create 2 controls and 2 spaces. There we go. And we're just going to copy the name. One, just change it to R. And then we have the OK, we have the pole. There we go. Change it to R. And we need one controller, which is called the same thing, R. And we need another foot IK. I wish I could make this a little bit bigger for you, honestly. Or could make it bigger for me. So we should have now 2 foot IKR, foot pole R, foot pole R. We just have to parent it properly. So foot IKR to foot IKR and pole R to pole R. And there we go. Now we just have to copy those nodes here from the foot, Ctrl+Z, Ctrl+V, plug this down here. And we just simply have to change things from L to R. I'm just going to change this from L to R, foot L, foot R, calf L, calf R, foot IKL to foot IKR, foot pole L to foot pole R, foot pole L to foot pole R, foot IKL to foot IKR, foot pole L to R, tie L to tie R, calf L to calf R, foot to R, and that should be it. Let's hit compile here really quick, and let's just see if it works. I hope it works. And it works right out of the box. Isn't that cool? Now one thing though, and I explained this a few moments ago, if we change our variable here now, let's say 15 again, minus 15 is what we wanted here. Yeah, there we go. You can see this one is in front, from the leg L, and from the arm it's in the back, but from the other foot it's in the back. So what we need to do here is drag this out and get a multiply float, and we multiply this -1 so that the number will turn around, and we plug this into the Y here, and you can see now it's evenly in front here. Really nice, pretty quick. I'm changing this back to 0 really quick because I don't need this. So really it's the same thing with the arm here now. We just need 2 spaces, 2 controls. New space. Can we just copy this? We can just copy it. And then new control. Okay, there we go. Now we just need to see, okay, we have the arm IK. I hate it that you always have to press space and change it to R, I guess. There we go. R, drop it on there. So we have the arm IK, and now we need the pole, copy it, paste it, change it to R, and for the control as well, change it to R and drop it on there. So with that we have everything we need, and now we can just copy the whole arm here, paste it down here, move it. Okay, we're just going to plug this in here. There we go, and maybe make a reroute node here. We had a reroute node there. In here, double click, and we're just going to flip everything out. So basically, arm IKR. And if we now hit compile, let's take a look here. Things should also work now. Now we cannot properly see it. Let's modify our controls a little bit here because they're quite big. Let's select the control here. Okay, I want to change the controls here a little bit because they're relatively big. I'm not so sure if a sphere is that good here. Let's see what we can use. 0.05 for the thin, maybe a box thick. Might just be fine. Okay, I think this is probably better than having a ball here which overlaps. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make everything a box thick, and I'm going to put in everywhere 0.05. Pretty small, honestly, but it's the right size. So there we go. Now the lines are a little bit annoying for me, so let's just skip this here, the draw hierarchy for a second. Disconnect it. And there we go. We have a little bit more overview here now. And maybe we should change our naming here to R, maybe. Put R, I guess. Maybe make a reroute node here to make it a bit more nicer. Because remember, once you set up the nodes, you can most parts just copy things. If you keep your skeleton relatively the same. Now this is a pretty special skeleton, I know, but the logic for those here should actually work for the Unreal mannequin as well, since the naming is not that different. I mean, the logic overall works anyway, but if anything goes wrong, all we have to do is like change the naming. But we made sure to name it like the Unreal default, so I guess it should work. So one thing you should make sure of is that you, in the basic IK, check everywhere propagate children. So if the IK moves, all the other bones will follow as well. It worked without, but this is just because we had empty bones there. It's just logical to turn them on, okay? So basic IK everywhere propagate to children.